And welcome to the Nights Around the Fire podcast. We're here at the Frank Saris Library. Glad you can join us. I hope all is well with you. Today we're going to have a general discussion, a general one, on the podcasts we've done over the last year or so. And today with us is two of our researchers, Sue Taylor and Ashley Hamilton. It's good that they're here, and of course, I'm not the brains behind any of that. I'm sort of just the person that asked dumb questions. So I hope that you enjoy this today, because we're going to delve into some of the things we talk about in our videos. We talk about mysteries, legends, and myths. We've been working with campfire stories for decades, for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years. So we investigate, we interview, we talk, and we ask for feedback. And we've gotten some feedback from many of you. Thank you. Don't forget, you can find us on YouTube at Nights Around the Fire. When you get there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share our videos. We have a store, and we sell stuff like this and other shirts that raise money for our common fund here. Right now, we are not funded, so if you can help us out, we're happy to hear from you. So right now, we're going to start with Ashley. Now, Ashley's done a few videos here. We've talked about missing persons in force. We talked about NASA quite a bit. We have some space themes. Jeff Bezos heading into space with his Blue Origin flights. And we talked about the occult origins of NASA. Very interesting. Now I want to let you know, before Ashley gets started, is I remember there being a lot more information about things happening with NASA, especially older information on the internet, theories, documentaries. Most of them have been scrubbed for many reasons. And of course, we're also going to talk about one of the biggest mysteries of all time, the Apollo 11 space flight, the moon landing. Fake or not? So Ashley, maybe we can start with the Blue Origin flight, because the Blue Origin flight, I think, is just a bizarre mix of space tourism that I think is a ripoff.
That's the whole point of Blue Origin, was to explore space tourism to a whole new light. But they'll tell you it's for scientific purposes and research purposes, and it's really not. It's for a bunch of people millionaires, to go up and get to experience something the everyday person doesn't get to get. But you too, for a deposit of $100,000, you could be on the waiting list, and they won't even tell you how much it cost to go on, but Google estimates in between $2 to $4 million.
That's for one flight.
That's for one flight, and what they don't tell you is it's from liftoff to landing, it is 11 minutes total. So you are spending $2 to $4 million to fly an 11-minute roller coaster and be floating in space for 2 of those minutes.
Sounds like a bargain, right?
Absolutely insane, and it's such a waste of money, but yet people do it.
How early can we sign up? Like, do you think I could get on schedule for tonight?
You could actually. When I was looking it up, it told me that I could fill in all of the billing information. I was like, this is insane.
It's crazy.
That, like, you could do that.
Book now.
But they have, basically, it's called, the nickname for it is a vomit comet. And it's a specialized airplane that doesn't have any of the seats or anything like that. And they take you up to a far enough distance, and they basically just kind of drop, and they allow you to float so you can kind of experience zero gravity. And it's nicknamed the Vomit Comet because a lot of people become extremely nauseous on it and throw up. So the crew was Ashia Bowie, who is, and I hope I'm pronouncing all these names right, I still don't know. She is a businesswoman and aerospace engineer. Kariana Flynn, who's an American film producer. Gail King, who's an American TV personality author. Amanda, I'm not even going to attempt that name.
Gwen?
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's a bioastronautics engineer and civil rights activist. She actually has a really awesome story. Katy Perry, who we all know is a world-famous pop star and singer. And then Lauren Sanchez, who I guess when looking up, she's now married. But I don't know when they got married.
Yeah, she married Jeff Bezos.
She's Jeff Bezos' wife. So Blue Origin specifically was showing up a lot on my feed of how this is the first all-women crew into space, and It was just this awesome feat for mankind, and I found it to be hilarious and they were all claiming to be astronauts. They were saying that they were astronauts, but they went through, I think it was 2 days of training, just simply 2 days of training, which is ridiculous. And I think, in my opinion, is a mockery to all the astronauts who actually put in the years of work. I think we had said it was over 2 years, and they had to specialize in all these different types of degrees. They have to get so many flight hours, and it's just absolutely ridiculous for them to claim. I think Gail King was the biggest one who was claiming, saying that we were astronauts and stuff like that. But the very first astronaut, or I should say all-female crew, was Valentina, and I don't know how to pronounce her last name. It's somewhere on there.
She's a Russian cosmonaut.
Yeah, but
She was the first woman in space.
Yeah, she was the first woman in space, and she was in a solo crew, and that's an amazing feat to have and to claim that. And she wasn't there for 2 minutes and just went over the little belt that's considered space.
And she didn't have to pay $4 million.
Yeah, she didn't have. Well, I mean, maybe later on. If she took out loans for schooling, maybe.
Ashley, I got a question. We did this video together. They came out with very tight-fitting.
Well, they went with those tight spacesuits, and they came out with those tight spacesuits. And it was the 11th flight that they had. And if you look at any of the other flights, they all had very baggy, very loose-fitting spacesuits on. And I found it to be very odd that the first all-crew for Blue Origin, we'll say, all-female crew, had to have these skin-tight latex suits on them. And it's like, why does everything have to be made quote-unquote sexy for people to be paying attention to? And
Because he's looking for the next $4 million. And if you look sexy coming out of there, you may get another 6 women willing to pay $4 million.
Well, heck, sign me up. Gotta go, guys.
Okay, everybody, just to let you know, Sue
Sue said, I'll wear it.
wants to go on the Blue Origin flight if we can get the money for her.
We'll start raising.
Ashley has already said she won't, even if we got the money for her. So we're split 50-50 on our half-girl flight into space.
We'll get you on there too, David.
Okay, I'll go.
There we go.
Listen,
We accept Venmo. Send it directly to me.
so remember, we do like support of our
It's
channel.
non-refundable.
Yeah, non-refundable, whether we make it or not. Thank you for supporting my cat's Christmas fund.
You've heard it here, right on the Nights Around the Fire. Okay, Ashley, that was an interesting video because I didn't even understand that they had that many flights.
Yeah, no. They made it seem like the very first flight.
It was 11, right?
It was the 11th flight, yes.
And I think we mentioned that the only one I remember is because I know the guy from TV was William Shatner, Star Trek fame, those of you that know that show. And he was in his 80s, but he played a space guy. And it's not really a lot to see, right? Because you look out into space and it's black.
Yeah, it's all black. You can't see stars for whatever reason. They talk about it's the atmosphere.
The atmosphere lets us see the stars, right? So I guess you can see the Earth for 2 minutes.
Well, you're technically considered in space for 4 minutes, and I watched the entire video. It was a 2-hour-long movie to watch 11 minutes of audio because they don't even have direct feed into the camera at that time, which was a big controversy because people were questioning if they actually did it or if it was faked. And I think when I first started going into it, I was like, yeah, it's 100% faked. Absolutely. Because just a lot of things are questioning. Why not, if you're spending $2 to $4 million, you can't get a live feed in on that camera, but you can get audio perfectly clear, but you can't get a video feed?
Now, this kind of segues perfectly into the next topic you researched, which was Apollo 11, the famous Apollo 11, landing on the moon for the first time. America did it. Yay, America. Now, many people, a lot of people, believe it was fake. I'm among those people that has an idea in my mind that it was, the first one especially, was faked. So Ashley, you did some research on that. What did we find out?
So there's a lot of reasons why people believe it's faked. The first one being that there's no stars. that you can't see any stars, which could be understandable if it's you're in a different spot in the atmosphere that you're just not able to see it versus what we can see down here. The different shadow lengths, which I find to be very interesting, especially with my photography background. It's when you have one light source. Now, the sun is absolutely humongous, so that's a huge light source. But when you have one, there shouldn't be shadows going in all different directions. They should all be kind of facing the same way. They might be different lengths or so, but they should all be the same way. The American flag having a breeze and it flowing, which I'm still partial on that. They say that that's how it was made. They had a stick to go in to make it extend, but that doesn't necessarily explain if there's no gravity and there's no, or not at least strong gravity, and no breeze, why is it then flowing? Would it not just kind of be, in a sense, suspended animation? That doesn't make sense to me, why there's so many ripples, unless they just simply didn't iron it beforehand.
We forgot to iron it.
How they were able to make it past the Van Allen radiation belt with no issues for the very first time. That was a huge thing, and that even the explanation that they give is so dumb to me, and I know we talked about that in the video. They said the reason why they were able to go through it without any issues or harm to themselves was because they went through it fast enough. Well, how would you know that no issues were going to happen if you've never done it before, and you would know that you had to go this amount of space? And they said fire walking is an amazing example of why. If you have, hot coals and you just sprint fast enough, you're not going to feel them. If me, myself, and I decide to sprint on some hot coals, I'm going to get burnt because my feet are not acclimated to that. They have not experienced that type of temperature. I don't have the calluses built up to deter the heat from causing any of them. But if I practice and I do it and I adjust my feet to that temperature and the calluses are able to build up, then eventually I will be able to, and I could probably walk across them. But not for a very first flight, having no experience whatsoever of what's going to happen past this radiation belt. We get more radiation things with x-ray machines and MRIs. So for this to be an entire belt just so condensed of radiation that which I don't even know why we haven't done much experiments and stuff like that with the Van Allen's belt. That would be something interesting to do.
That was discovered quite a while ago, too.
Yeah, why not do experiments and see?
So a question for you. Do you think that this is something that they faked it and they didn't realize, they didn't think about the fact that in the future we were going to have things like YouTube and stuff where we could play it over again and be because I've heard this with TV shows, that when they originally did TV shows, people were like, oh, nobody's gonna we're gonna run this TV show once and nobody's gonna see it again, not knowing that years later we were gonna be able to stream this stuff. Yeah. So they faked it, not thinking that in the future technology was gonna come along and be wait, I can see the wrinkles on the flag.
No one's gonna see this ever again.
Yeah. You have to think the times back then. In the 1960s, it was very different technology. We didn't have the camera systems that we have now and the expectations that we have now. I think they probably did fake it, not realizing. And that's another big thing, is they lost the footage and the information, which I was going through. NASA themselves came out with a claim saying it was lost. It was NASA's claim that it was lost. They think an intern did something with it, and it was just misfiled somewhere. And then in 2006 when they did it, and then 2009 NASA came out with a new statement saying it was never lost. And it's well, yes it was, but that they found it was in a different department, it was all here, but it was completely wiped by a magnetic field. Just a magnet swept it all. So they had to then go in and edit and add into those videos. So now if someone were to claim, oh, well, these are edited, these are faked, these are altered in some way digitally, they can say, well, yes, because the magnet, I don't understand that part. That's so dumb. If you had such important information in the very first moon landing footage, you're going to be so careless as to allow a magnet into the building, into whatever safe it was in, and just erase it all. That it's just so coincidental, and it's ridiculous. And they couldn't have any of that information, but they had, was it Werner von Braun?
Yeah.
He was still alive. He didn't pass away until the 1970s. They still could have gotten that information because they knew it was lost way before 2006. It wasn't 2006 just when they made the statement that it was lost, confirming that it was lost.
Since the 60s.
Yeah. But I think they probably did fake it because of all of the political pressure to beat the Russians and just anybody else who was going to be joining in. And we wanted to be the first because we're America and we couldn't possibly be second place to anything.
Yeah. I have a question now, and Ashley, being a photographer, one of the other big problems people have is basically the camera they used on the moon was basically a stationary Hasselblad 2x2 format, 2 1/4 format camera, and it doesn't move. But the pictures they took were professional
So
grade.
crystal clear.
And they were perfectly framed. Even the one with the light, and you see the light in the helmet of the guy. Is that, I mean, how hard would that be to take pictures in that gravity with a camera you can't even look down to focus it?
Well, you also have to think with the camera, it's experiencing zero gravity. It's experiencing extreme cold temperatures. My camera, which is a Nikon, which I don't know why I'm looking for, it's not here. My camera, if I take it out simply in the wintertime, my camera shuts off because it's so cold. Now, that's something I could physically live in and I'd be okay with, and I don't think they really had too much heat with them in space. There's no heat in space. It's all cold.
Plus the film itself.
Yeah, the film itself, the camera will automatically just stop working. That's just, it can't work in those conditions. And if you were the very first man on the moon, and I also have a problem with this statement, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It's like, I wouldn't be saying that. I would probably be laughing and screaming and just not even saying words just because of the excitement of, oh my goodness, we actually did it. We're here. This is what we're experiencing.
Staged. I mean, the words were already, someone already scripted
Yeah, but
the words.
the anxiety of, okay, I have to get these pictures. I have to do this. You know, you probably would shake some because that's a huge feat to conquer. That's amazing if we were able to do it. I don't know. I wasn't there. I question if so. But they wouldn't be as professional, in my opinion, and that's just my opinion. They wouldn't be as professional as they were if it was the very first, using the camera that they had and the technology that they had at the time.
Well, you know, this kind of brings us to one of your other videos. It goes back to NASA. NASA has a very rich history in the occult, doesn't it?
It does. Very interesting. And it was, as David had mentioned much earlier, I could not, when I was looking up the history of NASA, because you see all these videos talking about how NASA lied, and I remember growing up, you were able to access so much more information. Anytime I looked into NASA's history, I couldn't find the exact people who wanted to start it. I could not find a lot of history unless it was directly from NASA or it's people claiming to debunk all of the conspiracy theories. You can't find anything negative about NASA, and to me, that alone is suspicious enough to question. Because if you were to look up Trump, you're going to see, both sides to the party. You're going to see people praising him and saying he's doing all this good, and then people saying, well, no, he's not doing this good. Half of them are David's, but you can see all of these things. But NASA, it's very, nope, this is the facts, this is how it is. You can't question it, and even their explanations is horrible. I could not find anything about NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is still open.
JPL, yeah.
I could not find anything about it on NASA's website, unless I just didn't look good enough, on NASA's website or anything kind of mentioning it in articles and stuff, unless I directly Googled it and Googled the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And then it's like, oh, well, it's included in NASA's history and stuff like that, and they're still open under NASA. And it's funny that it's in California. But one of the people who was in it is Jack Parsons, who a very evil and wicked man, and who was very into the occult and pagan practices and actively doing rituals in the laboratories and stuff like that. Very twisted man.
Was he not mentored by Aleister Crowley?
He was.
Which
He
is
was
the king of the occult?
personally mentored by him, which is insane.
Aleister Crowley considered himself the most evil man in the world. Nice guy. So yeah, this is a connection, and of course they all were connected directly to NASA.
Yep, and Ron Hubbard, who is the founder of Scientology, he was also part of it. He wasn't nearly, at least from what I could read, he wasn't as involved in the occult as Jack Parsons, but he was still a part of it, which is a whole other thing as well, because you see all these things about Scientology, how it's a cult and stuff like that. It's like, well, I believe it.
Yeah.
Deep in space magic, deep in space aliens. He's written books. He's had all kind of things about space, and of course kind of connects to Parsons and it connects to NASA, because what we're led to believe is, and at least if you listen to L. Ron Hubbard, that there's all these planets that came down and created all this stuff here on Earth. I mean, there's a big long explanation for what he believes, and it is kind of bizarre.
It is. It's very strange, and that's what Jack Parsons was so interested in, science, and from a young age he was building rockets that he could build at home at the age of, I think the age of 12 is when he first launched his.
He was a genius. I mean, he was the founder of the JPL, and that was the premier place to build and design rockets. And what else? I mean, it's kind of odd to say that this is basically at the heart of NASA, the very logo of NASA.
Mm-hmm. But they don't tell you that.
Snake's tongue?
Supposedly.
It looks like a snake's tongue. Maybe we all read into it, or maybe it's what it looks like.
Well, it's enough to question.
Now I have to look this up, because I don't know what the NASA logo looks like.
Sue, yeah, it does. So Ashley, what do you think is happening with NASA? I mean,
Okay, I see it.
yep, we'll put it on the screen here. Snake's tongue. Comment, A or B. Ashley, okay, so we kind of talked a lot about the history, a lot of things that with Apollo. These are all more historic details, but in the long run, what is NASA doing? We're talking about going to Mars.
We've been talking about going
for decades.
Forever.
They have now 2030.
Because we're more observant now, and people could probably
Okay.
tell a lot more.
Right. I mean, it just seems like NASA is taking a lot of money, and I know we talked about the budget numbers on the video.
Just this year is $25.4 billion to fund NASA, and it goes up every single year.
Now, that's a lot of money, folks, even for like people that built rockets. But we're no closer to being anywhere. They're talking about going to Mars. We're going to colonize Mars because we're destroying this planet. We'll colonize Mars. Of course, you realize, as Ashley mentioned, colonizing Mars, it'll be for the rich people who can afford the rocket ride. So,
which is perfectly fine. They can go up into outer space and they can leave us all here. We'll be fine. We'll make it through.
So you won't go up?
Nope.
How about you, Sue?
No. Mm-mm.
No, Sue's not going either. Neither am I.
You don't want to be up there with Kim Kardashian and all the other A-list celebrities?
No, thank you. I'll stay here.
My trip to Mars will end up with a meteor smashing the ship, and I'll be floating in space.
There would be complications to where they couldn't actually do it because the rocket exploded, carrying everybody.
We have a problem here. So I think we said 2030. That was the next. They said they would be in Mars.
In between 2030, they think is when. I think 2036 is when they had said that they estimate, unless it was not NASA, but it was like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, and he has setbacks. Yeah. So the problem is the technology is just not here, and yet they tell you, because, again, I'm going to bring this up because we talk about this on all the videos, whether it's Sue's or Ashley's. We're affected by pop culture, what we believe space science really is. Jeff Bezos, or I think it wasn't Bezos, I think it was Elon Musk. He's building a starship Well, I saw a picture of it. It looks very similar to a rocket ship. Because when you think of a starship, you're thinking the television starships where they go through wormholes. He's thinking of a rocket. So it's not like it's real. They have it built and it's like going to transverse space. You know, it takes still, I forget how long it would take to get to Mars. We might have mentioned that. I don't remember.
I think we mentioned how long it would take.
Yeah, you can watch the video for those details. Please do. Like, subscribe, share. So your opinion, Ashley, how much do you think NASA is up front with us?
I think probably not very much at all. I think they are getting so much money. I think they probably are doing experiments and they are doing a lot of research, but I don't think that they are probably using the money that they have to do the absolute most that they can. I think it's putting a lot of money in people's pockets. There is a podcast that I think I had mentioned. They had convinced this person who was so for NASA that they had put up a live feed of NASA's space station and said, this is simply it. And, you know, you could see the satellite kind of roaming across it every now and then. And he's like, well, why can't you see land in this picture, you know, in this video that's live right now? And he went off and said, why, you know, you can't see because of the clouds and just all of this stuff. And then he's like, oh, really? So then he flips the picture upside down, because it was upside down, so right side up, I guess. And then he zooms out. It was just using a simple camera in his backyard, and the satellite that you saw was his satellite on his roof. And he's like, I have a budget of nothing, and I was able to convince you that this was live feed from NASA, but yet NASA has $1 billion budget, and we're just supposed to believe absolutely everything that they show us. He's like, I was able to convince you within seconds that this was true, but yet you're just supposed to blindly follow everything that NASA says. So I think it's enough to question. I can't, and we probably won't ever figure out if they are or aren't, because who's going to reveal that?
Sure.
There's always a motive behind something.
How many people follow NASA every day? There's probably some that watch their NASA channel every day, but most of us just assume something's being done, that they have a ship, they have astronauts that are going to go to Mars, they're going to land on Mars, but then all of a sudden another year passes, and all of a sudden you're $25-26 billion a year later, you still haven't set foot on Mars. And I don't think they will in our lifetimes. You know, I think space is a boondoggle, in my opinion. I hate to say it that way, but you know, we've again been told, as me and Sue have talked, and me and Ashley have talked, by pop culture, and we truly believe that you know, this stuff's just easy to do somehow. That the technology is right around the corner, that it can make you go hyperdrive and make you do all these fancy things they do, and just around the corner. But I don't believe it is. In fact, as you mentioned, Ashley, I think it was a NASA, it was an astronaut who was on NASA TV, and I saw the recording, who said the biggest problem they have with going to Mars is getting through the Van Allen radiation belt. He says, we have to design our equipment to be protected and our people to be protected. This was a few years ago. And of course, the comment somebody made on the screen was, why don't you use the same tin can you used to go to the moon? Because obviously that worked, you know? That worked. So NASA is kind of strange, and you found the same problems I had trying to find things.
Yeah. And we were able to find different things, but it wasn't all collective together. It was different search browsers and everything. It's weird.
A lot of it was scrubbed, and of course they want to kind of eliminate any history that is negative to NASA. And they'll come up with some new videos, I believe, now that debunks the debunker. Okay. We may never know. And of course, none of us are going to go to the moon. So we're not going to. Any final conversation on this, Ashley? What do you think?
I think it's very important to not always just blindly believe what you're told. I know I can speak for myself, always told don't believe everything you read or see online. And now, especially with AI coming, you really have to question, is this even a real video? Did this actually happen? And it is very dangerous, and I think it's important for us to stop and question, maybe take a step back and be like, well, okay, let's talk about this for a second. Let's review this information that I have and just go based off of that. I'm not saying the moon landing was or wasn't faked. It is just my personal opinion of it's very questionable. There are a lot of questionable things about it, but we are told to just blatantly believe. And that's not something that I think we should necessarily do.
Excellent. Yeah, that's why we're here. We want to talk about these topics, and sometimes we debunk them, sometimes we don't, and sometimes we will never know. Just to let you know, Ashley's next topic she's working on now is just that. It's the dangers of artificial intelligence. Now, that ought to be a really good one as well, because we now know there's a lot of people that have raised a warning flag, and one of them actually is Bill Gates, who's waved the warning flag for quite a while about the dangers of AI. So we're going to look forward to that one. Stay tuned to that particular video. So before we go on, you're watching Nights Around the Fire. We are discussing our topics that we went over through many of our videos. Our videos basically are on YouTube, Nights Around the Fire. Check it out. When you get there, like, subscribe, share, enjoy the videos. Next here we got Sue, and Sue's done a few as well. And of course it's night and day here. We go from science to paranormal, so to speak. And Sue, we're going to start with Lake Lanier.
Do you want to start with Lake Lanier, or do you want to stay in space and talk about aliens?
Well, we can stay in
Let's stay in space and talk about the aliens.
Stay on topic.
Yeah.
Okay, so the science fiction that predicted UFOs, that was the topic. We talk about this because pop culture really led us to a lot of the belief systems that we now have about UFOs. But there are some very, very pointed sightings that have even people who are skeptics kind of look at with puzzlement. So Sue, let's talk about that.
Okay. So back in 1938, you could be listening to what they called radio at the time, which was actually just a 1938 podcast. And a gentleman by the name of Orson Welles decided to do a broadcast called The War of the Worlds. And he started out this radio broadcast with a disclaimer that everything you were about to hear was fake. Again, this was 1938. Mm-hmm. In 1938, if I turned on the radio, I heard what was there. I couldn't go back and start from the beginning. Now, if you want to listen to this podcast, you pause it, come back to it, you come in late, you go back and restart it, pick up what you missed. You couldn't do that in 38. So people heard these aliens coming in and attacking New York City, and they panicked. They were out there ready to defend their properties from these aliens that were coming in, and created a huge hoax all over the country with people believing that we were being invaded. So that kind of set off everything with the invaders from outer space mentality. As we got further into the World War II era, UFOs became an even bigger deal. And the first well-known sighting was back in 1947, which was around the flying saucer craze. A man by the name of Kenneth Arnold saw 9 high-speed objects skimming over a lake near Mount Rainier in Washington. And that's how we got the name flying saucer, because they looked like saucers that were just skimming along on the water. So, does anybody have a stab at what we're going to go to next, what the next big one was?
Does it begin with an R?
It does actually. We're going to talk about Roswell. To a lot of people, I said this on the video, to a lot of people, Roswell is the end-all be-all for proving that space aliens came down, crashed. What happened was a farmer found what he believed to be a alien craft in his field in 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico. And they looked at it, they declared that, there was something kind of weird about it. But in 1948, the U.S. government started Project Blue Book. And there is a Project Blue Book on the Roswell case. And they came out and looked at it. The government came out, looked at it, and they said, okay, yeah, this is something. But then they came back, like the government does. In 1994, they came back and they said, actually, this was part of Project Mogul that was sent up to detect Soviet nuclear bombs. So, like Ashley just said, the government would never lie to us. Like, the government would never tell us something that was not true. So clearly, if the government says that Roswell was not a flying saucer, it was a nuclear against the Soviet craft. Okay, that was clearly the answer. So the government proved this to maybe like 6 people nationwide believed it. Because if you go online now, most people are still discussing that there were bodies recovered from the Roswell crash. People who were out at the Roswell crash that were very high up in the government said this was the weirdest thing I had ever seen. Like, this was not anything that was man-made. There was no possible way that this could have been a man-made object. This was like nothing I've ever seen on Earth. And some of the guys went out and talked to their children later, whose children have now come forward and said, my dad said clearly, this could not have been anything man-made.
Let's be clear. This was said to be a type of a weather balloon.
Yes, it was a type of weather balloon that was put up to detect nuclear blast from the Soviet. Because you think about that time, we were wrapping up World War II, but that threat of communism and, the Soviet, everybody was coming to get us, was very big. So Dave and I talked about this in the video, that all of this was kind of a deterrence from the fears at home at the time. So you were going to the movies and watching these movies about aliens invading when it was actually like a metaphor for what was going to happen to what people believe was going to happen to the country, that somebody was going to come in and invade us and terrify us.
Right. That was a big deal, even in after World War One, with 1938, and with that particular podcast. By the way, you can still hear that podcast, and I'll tell you what, Orson Welles is a genius.
It was
and
brilliant.
Considered a genius, period, before his time. And it was a podcast they did in a studio using pots and pans and actors that made all the noises, and people couldn't tell the difference. So check that out, you'll enjoy it. But Sue's right. I mean, the early 1900s were dealing with the Red Scare, with war, communism, you name it, they were fearing it. And of course, we now have another boogeyman, and that was going to be UFOs, aliens, right?
So do you want to talk about Eerie?
We'll throw in Erie here real quick, because Erie is close to us. For those of you that don't live in southwestern Pennsylvania, we have a Lake Erie, and there was a crash.
1966. It was July 31st, 1966. There is a Project Blue Book case open on it as well. Someone tried to claim that it was the weather balloon that he bought off of the back of a Boy's Life magazine that created this hoax, to which I say, oh, no, you did not, sir. No, that was not your weather balloon, sir. Nice try. No, it wasn't. I'm glad you got your 3 minutes of fame on Erie's news network. No, you did not do this. But a family, including 2 small children, a 2-year-old and an infant, were out at Beach 6 on Presque Isle. And they had driven down from New York, and they got there late. So they got there like 6, 7 o'clock. They made food. They decided they were going to go swimming. They were going to go change their clothes at the bathhouse to go in the lake, and the car wouldn't start. So the one guy said, okay, I will go into Erie and get help, because 66, they didn't have cell phones to call for help. They went he said, I'll go get a ride into town, I'll get help, I'll come back. So he leaves. A little bit later, some park rangers come along and they say, hey, we saw that, you guys look like you're having some car trouble, do you want some help? They said, well, the other guy in our party goes out, he'll be back with help. The park ranger said, great, we're gonna keep checking on you. If he doesn't come back, we'll get you guys out of here. Okay, cool. So park rangers leave, but they don't go terribly far from this. About this time, the people who are sitting in the car, it is full dark now. about 9:30 at night on a July night, they see some lights come out of the sky. And a craft that kind of looks like a mushroom lands not far from their car. And right after the craft lands, a creature comes out of the trees. And the creature approaches the car and starts like shaking the car, kind of scratching around it. Well, the people in the car are terrified. They start screaming, and the girl that is sitting in the driver's seat starts leaning on the horn. The horn blasts scare the creature away and bring the park rangers back. And so the park rangers say, okay, something's wrong. We've got to call the police. The Erie police get involved, and they take a look at these people that were in the car, and they say, there is no way you can fake the terror that these people are expressing. These people, clearly, they did not make this up. They saw something out there. It may not have been an alien, but they saw something out there.
Completely traumatized.
Yes, they were completely traumatized. And to this day, this Project Blue Book is still open. The government doesn't actually know what this was, and they are not prepared to say that it wasn't a UFO.
You know, we can fast forward. I know recently, and again, we don't claim we know, but recently was a lot of talk about what they called UFOs. They were bright balls of energy chasing down U.S. warships off the coast of California. And this got to be a big deal. The Pentagon had a task force. The gentleman who ran the task force was a little worried that no one was paying attention because these things were being filmed and being put on radar by our military off the coast of, not just off the coast of California, but other places. And the pilots would chase them and they couldn't catch up to them. That appear. It's a big, big deal about this. There was government hearings, congressional hearings, pilots testified. They still to this day don't know what they are. They know it's not like, well, did the Russians build? These things were just, didn't comply to anything that modern physics understands. So these are situations where we all have to look at and say, we all think we can put an answer to it. Someone always has an answer. Simple. But that's not how it really works. There's definitely things we don't know. And there's definitely things maybe the government doesn't even know. And maybe somebody within the government does. But as Ashley mentioned with NASA, you're never going to hear it from them. Although it was interesting how much publicity these particular sightings were. And of course, the military took them seriously because you're talking about a battleship group, you know, our most sophisticated planes and such were like toys to this thing. So it starts back with Kenneth Arnold, goes through Roswell, sightings and more sightings. I know this library has a guy coming in and talk about UFOs. He's from MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. People still are interested. It's still an interesting topic. And again, thank you, Sue, for that, because I grew up a conspiracy theorist. I'm going to go on record here. And I remember loving those stories. I have different opinions on certain things, but they were always interesting because a lot of life is pretty boring now. TV's boring.
Hallmark.
Concerts are boring.
Hallmark.
Hallmark's boring.
Hallmark is boring.
So, in that light, we're going to move on to...
Before you move on, I'd like to make a thing that popped out to me. So, NASA was founded in July of 1958. This happened in July of 1966, and the first moon landing was July of 1969. And I find that to be a little coincidental. What's happening in July?
Yeah, I
in
agree.
The 1960s.
Yeah, I mean, it's very convenient that all of this like lines up so nicely, like one right after the other.
Now, if you look at what Ashley talked about, the occult origins, they like numerology, they like consistency, they like certain months. There are always clues to know that someone's using occult practices or believes in them because of numerology, because of a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it's a good pickup. Yeah, July is a very interesting month. I guess we should look at other clues as we go forward here with investigations. Okay, this is something more close to Sue's heart because Sue was in Georgia for quite a while, and she went to Lake Lanier, a massive lake, right, Sue?
Dave, could you do me a favor in my backpack on that chair, if you could, since you have the moving mic? Inside is a gray t-shirt that I would like to show the camera. Since we're going to talk about Lake Lanier, make sure that I'm getting it for the camera. This is my I Survived Lake Lanier t-shirt. This is something you can purchase on our Etsy store along with our Nights Around the Fire. So if you are watching this online, go check the comments. If you are in the room, come see me and I'll connect you with the link for it. So you too can show that you survived Lake Lanier, because I did survive Lake Lanier. I lived in Cumming, Georgia, which is right on 400 main highway through Georgia. Lake Lanier is right there in the middle of it, and it is a huge lake. It hits 5 Georgia counties, so you could drive through it in Forsyth County and then still like drive up to Gainesville, and you would still hit it up there. So it is a very big lake. It was created on top of what was once a town called Oscarville. And this is one of the things I talked about in the video. People want to start there with the problems with it, which very well could be. But just to be clear, it is not uncommon for the US government to take a smaller populated town and flood it to make a controlled area, make some sort of floodplain or something like that. This is not uncommon. People, if you watch other YouTube videos, people want to talk about like how terrible this is that they did it to Oscarville. And yes, for the residents of that town, this was a big deal. This is not the only instance of this in our country's history. So,
In fact, we have one here in Western Pennsylvania.
we do. In Westmoreland County, we have a town that was called Livermore, and it was a small town built along the floodplain of, I believe it was the Conemaugh River in Westmoreland County. And the same thing happened to it. The town kept flooding, and the government came in and said, okay, we've got to create like a basin here because things keep happening. And they evacuated the town. They left most of the buildings there. They did move the cemetery, which creates some questions, and they flooded over the town. And to this day, people go out there and claim they see things in the cemetery, but they will see buildings on top of the water on Livermore Lake. They will see people walking along top of the lake, like looking down into the water. They will hear church bells tolling on Sunday mornings. I find Livermore to be a lot creepier than I find Lake Lanier. I swam in Lake Lanier. My friend, who also lives in Canonsburg, swam in Lake Lanier. My dogs, who both live to ripe old ages, swam in Lake Lanier. At the time I was in Lake Lanier, I was more concerned with encountering a rattlesnake or a cottonmouth or a copperhead than I was of encountering a ghost. But people claim that they will swim in Lake Lanier and somebody will pull them down. They will get tangled in something when there is nothing below them. And this has led to Lake Lanier being dubbed the most cursed lake in America and having a general very bad vibe with it with a lot of people. Like if you talk to people, they will say, oh, that's the haunted lake. You don't want to go there. And people say the same things about Lake Lanier that they say about Livermore. They see buildings on top of the water. They see people walking along the water. We have phantoms here. We have a lady of the lake who was seen after going into the lake from a car accident. And Lake Lanier has a huge reputation in the country. I am not one of those people who will tell you that Lake Lanier is cursed. People think that Lake Lanier is cursed because it has an extremely, extremely high death rate. Couple of facts about Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier is about an hour outside of Atlanta. Like we said, it is a very big lake. It is a very popular lake. A lot of people go out there. There are a lot of bars and restaurants and even an amusement park right along the edge of the lake. And what do you have when you get people, bars, restaurants, and boats? Alcohol. What can alcohol cause when you have people who may or may not be experienced with a boat? Accidents. That's actually a lot of the cases in recent years have been considered. It was, one of the rappers, Usher. I believe it was Usher's ex-girlfriend's son drowned in Lake Lanier because he was out there with a family member who was drinking and was boating and was inexperienced in what he was doing, and the child was killed. So I think a lot of these stories that come out of Lake Lanier about it being cursed and all these people dying in it are pure statistics. I think and this is, again, purely my opinion, I think when you get a high number of people, you're going to have a high number of accidents. You've got a very big populated area right there with a lot of people who want to go out. They have a lot of festivals out there, and it's a big area. You don't have to be right on one of the main areas in Lake Lanier. You can have private docks that you can go off of, and you have accidents. Like, it's a waterway, it's boating, canoes, kayaks. You have accidents. I don't think there's anything about Lake Lanier. Yes, it has a history. Yes, it has a creepy history. I don't think that that's what's causing all of these deaths on Lake Lanier.
Yeah, and I think the sheer number, I forget, under 1,000 deaths over a 50 or 60-year period.
Let's see if I have a number. I think it's it's 700. 700 since like 58 or something like that.
It's a small portion or small ratio. So yeah, I think we both agreed on the video that we can say that that title is maybe not so.
It's a fun campfire story, but it's not really, there's not really a whole lot to it.
We love campfire stories. I love them. A lot. Okay, so that'll take us to another video we picked from your list here, and we just interviewed basically a ghost hunter, Ken Smith, and he had a video. He's from Pittsburgh, and he came up with the 3 most haunted locations in Pittsburgh. This was fun. He has investigated these locations at least 15 times each. Go on record. Ken has been involved with some of the TV shows, and he admits most of them have a lot of fake things in them. Of course, it all is driven by money. But Ken does this stuff for free, and he came up with what he called his 3 most haunted locations.
He did. So the first one that we talked about with Ken was the foundry of Carrie Blast Furnace. Yes, down by Kennywood in Pittsburgh, and Ken's been there a couple of times, and this is one of the places that he has seen a full body apparition. He could describe in detail seeing a man wearing like a white t-shirt and overalls, and said to other people in the ghost hunting group that he was talking to, like, well, where's the other guy that was in the room with you? And they said, what other guy that was in the room?
Yeah, that Carrie Blast Furnace is actually an interesting tour because it now is it's not a ghost tour necessarily, but it is a place where they do make stuff there now. There's the small vendors that do steel and glass. I believe there's also some food trucks there. So it's again a location where you can go and actually have a good time and check out. Steel mills in Pittsburgh are very interesting, as it was the Steel City, and many of those buildings are still here. And yes, we do still make some steel here. Did I say that right?
Steel.
Yes,
Okay.
you did.
Yeah, steel.
Steel.
We still do. So Carrie Blast Furnace. Okay, number 2, Sue.
Number 2 is Nemacolin Castle out in Brownsville. And Nemacolin Castle is a beautiful house that was built right along the Monongahela River in Brownsville. And I've gone out there for daytime tours and for ghost tours, and it's a very cool place to see. It's got a lot of stories associated with it. Ken has been out there multiple times, and he was doing an investigation, and he said you can hear things throughout the house regularly, and the staff will tell you, oh yeah, we hear people running up and down the stairs regularly, we hear people in the hallways regularly. Okay, so one investigation that Ken was there, he went upstairs to collect his equipment. And while he was collecting his equipment, he was standing at the top of the stairs, and he looks over, and standing about as close as I am to Dave right now, he sees a full body apparition of a woman dressed all in black. She's got a veil over her face, blank expression on her face, just standing there watching him. And Ken takes a minute to realize what he's seeing, takes a minute to check himself, also realizing he is standing at the top of the stairs and he does not want to fall down the stairs.
Be pushed down.
Yes, while he is there. And he looks back and this woman is gone. So that was one of his really cool stories about seeing an actual spirit.
I believe that was in the starch room. They call it the starch room. That's where they ironed clothes, the workers.
Because you will see somebody like sitting on the bed or laying on the bed or and some sort of indent on the bed. And you will, if you ask her to smell starch, you can smell starch in the room.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, once again, we weren't there. I know what starch is.
Laundry
Think of
starch.
cornstarch.
I think of cornstarch too.
Those of you that don't know what starch is, it was in a spray bottle in our times. You'd spray it on clothes and you'd iron. It would solidify the clothing a little bit, get rid of the wrinkles and keep the wrinkles out. They used that a lot.
There's a Western trend now where people spray starch on their jeans and they iron their jeans to make them so incredibly stiff. And I just don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. I've never understood what starch
But
is.
they say starch and I automatically think it's cornstarch and
Yeah.
water.
Like what?
I don't know how Ashley knew that, but thank you for that info.
A lot of videos that trend. And it's like, oh, okay.
Okay, starch. Pretty cool. Just to let you know, again, Nemacolin Castle, outside of ghost hunting, is a beautiful tour. And it is a very beautiful place sitting on the Monongahela River.
They had, I think, 500 people. Like, their ghost tours this month have been selling out.
Yeah, people do that. But again, if you just want to go there to look at the castle, because it is a historic landmark, do that. It's a nice little trip. It's a nice tour if you're in the area. And it's a beautiful, beautiful building. We'll show you a picture here on the video channel. Okay, so I don't have a drum roll. Thank you, girls.
Because I don't know if you can hear it.
Number one.
Number one is Conneaut Lake Amusement Park. Conneaut Lake Amusement Park is, if you were from southwestern Pennsylvania, if you head north towards Erie, it is right around the Meadville area, right off of I-79. And Conneaut Lake Amusement Park was there for many years. They had a roller coaster that was called, I believe it was the Blue Streak.
Blue Streak.
That was one of their most popular wooden roller coasters. The park has been closed for some time now, and they are cleaning it up. They are actually doing some stuff with the park. I just talked to somebody who's from that area, and he said that they've recently sold it, and they don't really know what's going to happen with it, but maybe the amusement park will come back. Ken did not actually go into the amusement park area. Where he was in the Conneaut Lake Hotel, which is still there and is under renovation according to their webpage. So you can still stay there. And Ken had one story where he had left his room and was going downstairs and heard someone walking on the hallway behind him. So footsteps, phantom footsteps. Then his big story from Conneaut Lake Hotel was he was standing at the reception desk downstairs talking to the clerk who works at the reception desk. And as he was standing there, a couple walks in, and they're both dressed in like winter gear, like he described it as like London fog, like style coats and like matching hats, man and a woman. The two of them walk through the lobby, past the reception desk, and towards, I believe it's the restaurant area that's right below there. As they're walking past him, Ken feels someone tug on his belt loop. So he looks at the girl at the reception desk. He's like, that woman just pulled my belt loop. And the woman who is at the reception desk leans around the desk and said, it wasn't a woman, it was the little kid that was with them. And Ken looks after them. He's like, there's no little kid there. Like, what are you talking about? He clearly saw 2 individuals. The woman saw 3. She saw a man, a woman, and a child. And it was the child who pulled on Ken's belt loop. So not only did he see something, he actually felt something in that experience too. So very cool.
And somebody else was there and witnessed more
Yes.
than what he witnessed.
Yes.
Yeah, tune into that video because it is interesting. He very energetic guy, Ken is, and he's been to Conneaut Lake Hotel 15 or 16 times. I have stayed there. Not for a night, because it was an ancient hotel with no air conditioning, no pool, and no elevator. So we got out of it and went to some motel with a pool and with air conditioning. But it's a beautiful place as well.
Did you see anything when you were there?
No. I mean, it's got a weird vibe because it's an old place.
Yeah.
And
He was
I'm
too
going to
busy
put
complaining about no AC.
Yes. In the pool. He was too busy looking for the pool.
Where is
Yeah, I was looking for the pool. I'm getting hammered here by the nitises here. So anyway, it is a beautiful place, and I guess a lot of people still stay there. They have a good room and board. You don't need a pool or air conditioning. I guess they have heat in the winter, so that would be a great time to go. So again, Conneaut, if you want to go up and still stay there, it's another of Ken's top 3. I think we're going to go back to Ken and have him do the next 3 on his list. So Sue has an upcoming video she's going to be recording with me as well. I call it the Legend of Salem, Massachusetts. Why? Because Sue, you actually went there for a week.
So I've been there a couple times. I just came back a week ago yesterday from our recent trip, and Salem was the site of the witch hysteria in the 1690s. And it's one of the few areas that you could actually convince me is cursed, because Dave and I make jokes in our video about like everything's a cursed town. Like, there was always a witch, there was always a murder, and someone cursed. Well, okay, so that actually happened in Salem, and I will save that for the video. But that actually happened in Salem, and there's actually some historical evidence to back up that actually did happen up as late as 1991. So, spoiler alert, stay tuned for the video.
So stay tuned for that video. I know we did talk about, I think it was up in, was it in Westmoreland County where they say they burned a witch and that's why it was cursed?
Yes, of course they did. No, that didn't happen. That was Livermore, and they say that's why the town kept flooding and all kinds. It was a huge thing, and there's only one website I found that talked about that, and it definitely looked like one of those ghost tour like clickbait articles. So, but they claimed there was a witch. They claimed that they burned the witch, and as the witch was being burned at the stake, they
were any witches burned?
No. So witches were never burned in America. That was a European thing. Now the European witch hysteria was a far different experience.
They were crazy.
They were crazy. There were only about 20 to 25 people killed in Salem. In Europe, there could have been millions of people killed. So.
Sadly, hysteria always runs deep when it comes to these things. That's why we are here to sort it out for you. Nights Around the Fire, like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget that we are moving up. You're going to see the girls here. This is one of the few times, and we're going to hope we do it more, that we're all together.
We're doing good.
It's fantastic.
We're doing good right now.
We are.
Helping to stay
They're
on that
doing
street.
good.
Yep, doing really
These
good.
are great. I mean, let's be honest. They know their stuff. I want to thank you for joining us at what turns out to be part 1 of a 2-part series we filmed at the Frank Saris Public Library. I want to thank Ashley and Sue for participating, for doing a great job. Please comment to tell them how much you like them. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share all of our videos. And stay tuned for the next installment of Nights Around the Fire.